Hey everybody, it's Henry Lawrence Harrison. We're going to take a look at the week of astrology for this week, uh, April 11 through 17. So I have a few notes prepared for this next phase of the moon, but really what I'd like to talk about is more of the stuff that's going to happen next week. Um, I think there's some important developments this week for sure, especially with the sun. But next week is really where we see a lot of changes, I think. So, before we begin, I thank you for listening to my show, and I hope it's really helpful for you. So, I thank you, and I want to thank God for His wisdom that we can contemplate these mysteries to His glory. In Jesus' name. Amen. So this weekend was pretty intense, pretty weird weekend. I bet. I hope you had a good weekend, as well as it could go. Um, but this week, we're gonna go through the new moon, and the moon will be gaining in light all week as it moves through Taurus and Gemini. And that's good stuff, and we should pay attention to that. But what I really want to talk about is Venus. Venus is going to move from the sign of Aries, where she's in a fallen condition, detriment, I believe, to her own house, where Uranus is. Now, Uranus and Taurus is really weird. Uranus in general can signify bizarre developments or unexpected, predictably unpredictable things or events. So, and in Taurus, it's referring to land, finances, resources. So, there are a few world events that are pretty clearly indicated by this that you can figure out if you use your mind. I don't really want to go into it, but it is the way I've been thinking about this is Venus is coming into her own house, and Uranus is there, and Saturn is at a square to Uranus, right? So Venus in her own house wants what she wants. She wants to be given what she expects in the way that she wants it. So, if that's people in general, us, we're going to want, to have whatever Uranus and Taurus has been doing all this time. But, so, this connection of Uranus to Taurus, of Venus to Uranus, is under the beams of the square to Saturn. So, I expect that it could get tight in the financial world at this time. It could be a very restrained way of doing Venus in Taurus. It will not at all be an ordinary Venus and Taurus experience, because these are, this is a powerful dynamic that really isn't good for what we like and what we want. If we think about the freeze that we experienced, in Texas, and how that affected global supply chain and so on, I do not think it will be a good time in the marketplace. And I was looking at, this Venus and Taurus. I know that last year Venus was in Taurus around this time, a little earlier, because she's in Taurus during the 0-degree Aries ingress of the sun. But I looked at the markets. I saw, of course, that there was this flash crash in the market. This is just Bitcoin at this time, right around the beginning of March. And that was, of course, when Venus went into Taurus the last time. So, just some food for thought. I think there could be a very tight strain on the market at this time. And that, could start to come into play next week. Venus will move into Taurus on the 19th. And make the square to Saturn on the 24th after she makes the conjunction to Uranus. So our financial world, it's going to be shocking. It's going to be a disruptive influence. I think if we consider that people are going to generally want to have their money during this time, you could see a pretty significant cut to the market. That's how I'm choosing to view it. But do your own research, and this is not financial advice. So, that's mainly what I wanted to really preface all this with. The sun will move into Taurus this week. Mars will make the trine to Jupiter on the 17th at the end of the week, this Saturday. And other than that, the moon makes a few aspects, and the sun makes the sextile aspects to both Jupiter and Mars. Well, Mars first, and then Jupiter on the 15th, the 13th, and the 15th. He will also be making a square to Pluto on the 16th. So, all right. Now, this chart is quite a bit different than last spring's chart. Venus, in the later degrees of Aries, had to make the square to Pluto and Saturn and Jupiter at that time, so it really wasn't good in a whole different way than it isn't going to be good in this next phase with Venus square Saturn. So, consider how much you want to have in, how much you want to have out, what you want to have on hand, what you want to have out there. I think is the most sobering sort of look at Venus and Taurus, Venus in her own house. So, and consider that people are going to want to have their stuff at this time. So, I think those are the pretty key considerations. All right, so let's just go hour by hour now. And if you're new to my channel, I thank you for watching. I really enjoy doing these charts. Just something I really fell in love with over the past couple years, so I hope it's cool for you. I know how much I enjoy hearing other people look at the chart and bring their insight to it, so it feels really cool to give something back to the community in general. So, okay, so the moon will move through the conjunction to the sun tonight, pretty much right on top of Venus square Pluto. So, this new moon is like planting the seeds for it, as if some instability in our finances, in our where we're finding value, the stable way we've been able to go out and get what we want during this Venus and Aries phase. That's coming more to a head now, and we are going to shift, you can see on Wednesday, into Venus in Taurus, which is very different than Venus in Aries. It's a planet going from detriment, that's debilities, to their own house, which is even dignities. It's not paragon. So that's that. We don't really have any planetary aspects other than those until we get to Saturday. We can see that the sun will make these sextiles and squares, like we said. So generally, the whole week is going to be about like how are your personal energies or anything signified by the sun, how is that relating to the way that we're expanding in this more Aquarian context and in this Gemini context, and how do those work together? How do our personal energies work back and forth between those two areas? And that's building up to a very, very, so to speak, a fortunate, benefic trine of Mars to Jupiter on Saturday, with the moon pretty much right on top of Mars. So we'll get to that. That's kind of the beginning of like the dominoes that start falling for next week. Kind of starts on Saturday, and we should note that on Sunday, that next Sunday, the Mercury Casimi will happen. So Mercury is moving very quickly through Aries, coming up to the end degrees of Aries as well, and going to enter into Taurus on the 19th. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the moon. So the moon will be going through the new moon. We had a decent day for Mercury stuff here, looks like, fateful. Letting go, we're planting new seeds, and this first instance of light is coming right up into Venus. So it's like a reset in our Venus area of life. So definitely get checked in this evening and tomorrow with where are you finding value? Can you see on the horizon that there's instability? What does that mean for you in particular? What does that mean for whatever Venus signifies? In our chart, the where we are in the world, the mundane chart, I'm talking about the eastern United States right here. We're talking about like foreign interests and the homeland. That's pretty much what Venus is talking about in our area in the very mundane context. So Venus, we have like this sense of, imbalance between what's ours, like the castle, like the fourth house, and what's out there, the Sagittarius, just keeps going on and on. And I mean, in the way that the signs correspond to the houses, the ideas are the same. For us, it's the fourth house, Aquarius rising. So if you want to know about the mundane context, I think wherever you are will be really affected in that particular way by these transits of Venus and the moon right there too, kind of having to go through this power and control dynamic with Pluto in the late evening tonight into tomorrow morning. All right, so the moon will be very briefly void of course in the afternoon tomorrow on Monday. And they will be applying a conjunction to Uranus all day, which doesn't perfect, so it's kind of a weird day. I feel like, we can feel like you can see this square to Pluto with the sun is already building up. So, I mean, we're really working with both of these areas of our life, Mars over here, Jupiter over here, on a very personal level, and we're expanding out with that. And I feel like the moon is like in sync with that. Like the moon isn't like in a terrible place, it's actually pretty supported, but we're kind of feeling out this new territory that, we don't really know much about. Uranus is a pretty obscure force, and Saturn is a less obscure force, but it's still, very background. Most people don't perceive exactly what Saturn is. So anyway, the moon will move through that, and the moon and the sun will perfect the sextile to Mars about this time. So we're really able to use up, like, the sun can signify personal energy. The vitality that you have that, like, can make things go. So really make sure you have the vitality by this time. I feel like this weekend, you might have got pretty drained out. I did. It was fun. It was more fun than I thought it was going to be, but it was definitely super dangerous, and I'm glad I paid attention. So, you know what I'm saying? But the moon will move through there and go through what's the moon, what exact, so the square to Saturn on Tuesday. So do the best with the limitations. Find the power in the limitations. Honestly, Saturn can demand that you do things a certain way, but there is a wisdom. You know what I mean? The Saturn has been designed by wisdom. Everything has been. So it's telling us about a way to, like, look, there's a crunch right here. Like, there's a constriction. There's like a almost like a hole, even. It's got to be filled or not, and if everybody tries to get their money all at once, it can be a lot of hardship for a lot of people. So it's I think we'll be kind of feeling that out at that time. And the related themes, Sometimes when I do these reports, it'd be too long-winded if I talked about, like, everything I'm thinking about with each one. But if you can kind of, from the example or the analogy, like, get the gist and apply it to the context that you're concerned with, it works. You know what I'm saying? I'm sure you know what I mean. Okay, so on the 14th, Venus will go into Taurus, and in the early afternoon, and the moon will be square Jupiter and trine Pluto. So I mean, you might want to go big and, like, do it extreme at this time, but tap into that Saturn thing. Saturn was trying to tell us about something, like, hey, like, check out that you don't go too big, you don't use too much power, pretty much. But I feel like that's, you're just gonna have to really see what that day means for you, how it's manifesting, what it is manifestly for you. But there is a very easy transformative access to power, and we might want to go too big. So be careful. Things might look extra shiny, or especially with Neptune. Don't do it. Just buy yourself something little tiny, something nice. You know what I mean? Get her something nice. But understand that there probably will be this difficulty around money this month. So maybe you can take some steps at this time, but that's up to your wisdom. You should use your wisdom for that. So, all right. So the moon will go through that square. Venus is in Taurus. The moon is void, of course. And then by the 15th, they're in Gemini, applying to the North Node, and that's really it. yeah, the our personal energy, like we're the thing is like we are actually able to expand in this at this time. Like our personal energy is connected to that. Um, so I mean, we have the vitality and the power. So I think really, if you have that, you can not have it both ways, but really use your energy to expand in a good way within this whole Aquarian thing. So, but when we get to the 16th, Friday, I know we just jumped right through that Thursday, but it's really just the moon and uh, Gemini generally applying a trine to Saturn by the AM of the 16th. So I feel like we'll be intuitively aware. Like it's kind of like a intuitive level of awareness that we can and we should um, maybe cool it in a way, or make sure that we have what we need that what's going to need to be done is guaranteed in a way, so that we're not mixing up the excesses with what has to be done, because I feel like that could happen, especially when the moon gets to Leo, but that's not until next week. So yeah, so it's pretty much Thursday. It's connected to where we're ultimately going, it's opposing the South Node. So I mean, there will be this South Node tendency, if we want to do the easy thing, we want to, the South Node can really represent like our unconscious blocks, so we can maybe face those head on by just being aware on Thursday into Friday. But when we get into Friday, the sun will be making the square to Pluto and applying to Neptune by a square. The moon will be applying to Neptune by a square. So I wouldn't go out on this night. It could get a little too much Neptune. You got to just understand what I mean by that. It's hard to pin down, but because people have been connected to this power thing all day by a difficult, like a challenge, maybe our personal energy is challenged by this instability that we're picking up on intuitively. And then it's just it feels confusing. So don't do the Saturn stuff like before that. But on the other side, like Mars is going to trine Jupiter by the AM, so it might be hard not to be out on the streets doing stuff at this time. It really might be where it seems like it's all at. I mean, it's connected to Mercury, it's connected to Jupiter. People will probably want to be out, especially with Neptune. Oh yeah, I mean it'll be happening, but I don't know. I would be sure to perceive what you really want. You could get lost in meaninglessness in a way with that. But in a way, our Jupiter and Mars can be really tapped in this time. And that sounds awesome. Could I say more about that? Saturn. I don't know. I kind of want to let the other astrologers tell me about that. I don't really know exactly what that will mean. Mars, trine, Jupiter. I mean, they're both in air signs. They're not. Neither of them are in their own houses. They're pretty much peregrine at this point. So I mean, it happens to be at night during this day, but I feel like in the surrounding days, obviously our activity will be super tuned into like where we're creating this new thing in this Aquarian space, where we're just using our vitality to just do, especially with the sun connected to the other planets by these various aspects. So, well, on the morning of Saturday, the moon goes through the trine of Jupiter, goes through sextile to Mars, or conjunction to Mars, trine the sun, and they're void of course until they get to Cancer in the early afternoon, at around the time that Mercury was making a square to Pluto. So when Mercury conjoined Pluto, that was the January 6th riot at the Capitol. So, I think we will be thinking back on that. There will be themes relating back to that, relating to the homeland generally, or how we feel comfortable in Cancer. It'll be very sensitive, and words can hurt. Words can change. Words can do all sorts of transformative things. So, but Mercury isn't in a bad place. Mercury has perfected the sextile to Mars, and they're doing a mutual reception. So, this is the peak time when Mars and Mercury energy are really going to be working together for a while. So, and Mars will be going into Cancer later this month. I think it's on the 23rd. So, we can really get tuned in to that. I don't really know how to interpret that. But Mercury is like really close to Cazimi, and he's or wait, did Mercury already Cazimi? Yeah, on Sunday, Mercury will be Cazimi. So, and that Cazimi is right in between Jupiter, Mars by the sextile. So, our Jupiter, Mars, and Jupiter, Mars, and Mercury will be really tied in as well as they can be with the energies that they have, the places that they are on Saturday. So, a good day to take account, a good day to think, a good day to consider all the sides of things, consider where we're going, how we're doing it, what we're building, what is this thing that we're expanding towards. Especially thinking about Jupiter and Jupiter and Mars both moving into water signs, and Mercury moving into an earth sign. So, and Venus has already moved into an earth sign. So there's a huge dynamic change that we're on the cusp of in general. So, maybe Mercury will be getting the message out loud about that once the moon goes into Cancer. But the Mercury will be moving into the Cazimi before he moves into Taurus. So he's under the beams this whole time pretty seriously, and it looks like a time to really purify the Mercury theme. Hopefully, so by this time, like whatever has been going on in your Aries area of life with Mercury, be sure to put the work in on that this week, because the energy will not be there in Aries anymore, pretty much after this Cazimi. So, and all the energy will be moved into our next thing. So, understand that this week is pretty much about finishing these Aries themes and kind of looking ahead to like what this is going to mean when everything moves into Taurus and it's making the square to Saturn. So energy will not be as supportive for certain activities at that time, but we're going to be wanting to enjoy, we're going to want to be involved in the five senses of pleasure, so to speak. So having our money, having our resources, people want to be spending money. So, but there is that challenge to Saturn, and I think that's an important one to think about. So, okay, yeah. So that's pretty much this week. So this week ends with everything in Taurus, pretty much. Or next week, basically next week starts with everything in Taurus. Everything's got to go through the square to Saturn. So, definitely, this is the week to get in touch with what Jupiter's doing in your chart in a personal way. What Mars has been doing in your chart in a personal way. The light is building up all this week. So, when will that be? So, like, basically and this will all come to a head kind of when, looks like when the moon's in Leo, right on April 20. So, definitely expect that this T-square with everything at that time. Don't be taken by surprise by it. It's going to be a lot of T-square energy next week. Before the Mars goes into Cancer, so we'll have to finish up all these Mercury or these Mars and Gemini themes by then. So, you know, this week really is, to be a broken record, you know, the time to get in touch with what these planets have been doing in your chart, basically. So don't avoid it. Just do it. I believe in you. You can do it. So that's it, guys. I really thank you for watching, as always, and hope it's helpful. Just any feedback that you have is appreciated. So thanks, guys. God bless. In Jesus' name.